Hi, I'm Dr. Matthew Norton, founder of People Plus Purpose, and your host on this episode of the Truth Behind Dentistry podcast. And today I am thrilled to be joined by business consultant, executive coach, and podcast host Tracy Cherpeski. Tracy lives with her family in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and she loves to help practice owners buy back their time while increasing their revenue and enjoying exquisite fulfillment. I love that. Welcome to the podcast, Tracy.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I've really been looking forward to this. I have so enjoyed our conversations up to this point, and I love your energy and your enthusiasm. And I would love to just maybe have you give a little bit of reason for that energy and enthusiasm. What is it that drives you so much?
Oh, wow. I don't think I've been asked that way before. I really believe that life is meant to be enjoyed. And if I recognize that this is also a very privileged way of seeing things, but if we're stuck in survival mode and our mind is only focused on how we're going to get through this moment or this day or this week or this month, that we're missing out on a lot of opportunities for little micro, moments of joy.
Hmm.
And I think that that's really what drives my philosophy and my approach to my work with my clients, to the way that I've, worked with raising my family and integrating families with my husband and his kids as well.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Well, I know there is something, there's a real heart behind what you share. And so I appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate the time with you today. Um, I know you're not a fan of conventional time management. So I'd love to hear kind of your take on why that doesn't work and what is time leadership, which you suggest is a better option.
Yeah. So even just with language, so a little background, I'm a linguist. I also kind of think about the impact of words, and the word management sort of tends to imply control.
Hmm.
And we don't actually have control over time. So one of the reasons why I don't love the term time management, especially for my clients who are practice owners, and I think this applies to all business owners, is that the traditional time management tools and tips and all of the typical things, traditional things, don't necessarily work. I think they work for sort of middle management types, or people who do not carry the responsibility of an entire organization on their shoulders. So as a practice leader or practice owner, the idea of time leadership, which, by the way, I didn't even know that this was a thing. I thought that I was really clever, but I'm glad I went and I Googled it and learned that it's actually an engineering term. And it is very aligned with what I thought time leadership should be. So, kudos to me as a non-engineering person getting that down. But it really implies like getting a sense of clarity, getting super clear about priorities, and then finding a way to prioritize the tasks that need the most energy and require the most bandwidth or brain space or time. And so that's why I like to employ that, because as for our clients, our practice managers, you just can't do everything. It's not possible. I mean, it's not sustainable. I suppose it's possible, but it's not sustainable. And it's certainly not the healthy way to run a business or a practice. Particularly, I think it's um, a very different thing to be a provider and an owner, because you're wearing lots of hats, but those are the two main hats, being like this business strategist and then also being a compassionate provider. So using a time leadership approach provides a tremendous amount of freedom and also laser clarity on what the priorities can and ought to be.
So where do you see the primary challenges coming up when people are needing to lead better with their time? Where are we falling short?
I think in general, medical and dental providers don't usually go to business school and maybe didn't come up, if they were lucky enough to come up through a family business, they might have a little bit better sense of what the priorities are on the business side. On the clinical side, I fully trust that my clients know what they're doing and how to manage that. On the business side, however, they tend to lack some confidence and a little bit of clarity, and there's massive overwhelm. So the struggle really is, I don't really know how much of this I'm supposed to put my own hands on, how much to delegate, and what to let go. So that's a real focus for us, is to one, to get clear on what they really, really want to accomplish in their practice. Like, what are their goals? What's their vision? What's the legacy they want to leave? So we can see that 10,000 or even 20,000 foot view, and then break it down into, okay, so if these are your goals and this is your vision and where you're headed, now we need to look at what the priorities are. And from the business operations perspective, a large amount of the day-to-day business activities do not belong on the plate of the provider, period. It's under their purview, but it's not on their plate.
Right. So what would you say is a typical action step or two that you end up advising for business owners to take?
Yeah, priorities. And so I actually created a time leadership quadrant. It's like a time delegation quadrant. And so imagine in your mind's eye with me, draw a rectangle and then put, a little cross through it. So you have now 4 squares inside of there. So the top left-hand quadrant is A, and that is things that must be finished, like completed today. And my advice is, too personal. So self-care and something else for yourself. And then no more than 3 business tasks to complete, right? There's all kinds of other stuff to do, but like focused priorities. And then over in the top right-hand quadrant is B. And that's a little bit, it's like a week. I usually tell my clients to plug that into a week. So by the end of the week, what are the things that you want to complete? And each day when you're ready to work on them and complete them, or complete part of it, you move it over to A.
Okay.
And by the way, they do a lot of this in their mind, initially they write it down. Right. And then the lower left quadrant is C, and that's a longer time frame. And for my clients, it might be 3 months, it might be 6 months or a year, or they might have C and then CA, CB, and CC for different kinds of projects with different, lengths of time. And what we do there in C is we break down the components. We identify the components so that we can almost work it backwards and then start funneling things over to B, get it on the radar so we know it's coming, and then shift the components or pieces of it over to A to complete. Okay. And the lower right quadrant is D, and it's really 3 Ds. It's do it. Just like get it done, get it off your plate. My joke is like, you walk into your house, you set down a box, a week later, the box is still there because every time you go by it, you've got something else in your hands or whatever. But every time you go by, it's draining some energy from you because your thoughts are like, I really should put that away. I'm not saying I've ever done that, but so just put the box away, right? Unpack it, do whatever you need to do. So it's do it, delegate it, or delete it. So if it can be delegated, it can also be delegated to a different quadrant. It can be delegated to a person, or it can be delegated to a different quadrant. Or you can also delegate it to the delete pile. And I joke that around the holidays, we say ditch it and have a party. So that's your third D.
Good. I like that. Framework.
It's an easy way to be like, is this A, B, C, or D? Right? If we understand what those quadrants are, we don't even have to have the quadrant unless we're very visual, and that would be supportive. Yeah. But just, is this urgent? Does it need to get done today? If it doesn't need to get done today, then perhaps I can get it done by the end of the week. A lot of people think that's procrastination, but if you write it down or put it in whatever kind of task keeper that you use, then you will get it done. Right. And it frees up all that brain space.
Or you end up deciding maybe after a little bit, I have this occur to where I'll look back and it now no longer seems necessary or as important as I thought when I wrote that down.
Absolutely.
So deleted, I guess.
Yes, yeah.
Or at least it'll pop back up on a later list if it really is that meaningful.
Absolutely. And this is, I think, the key to like finding and getting super clear. It's like one will become more discerning and a much faster decision maker, a more effective decision maker when the priorities are clear and when we have a framework to use to like divide up our time and our energy.
Right.
My huge focus is on time and energy. I really focus a lot on energy, but that's kind of hard to market, right? So it's really about time. Right? Because time is energy. If I just went to energy, it might sound very woo, right? So we're really talking
I
about
could have
really
put that
practical things.
in the intro. I could, she is a master marketer of energy.
Right? And people are going to go, well, what does that mean? So, yeah. So it's, I think it just simplifies, and we all do well to have kind of a framework or, little guidelines to plug things in. I do really well with systems. My brain can be very scattered and ping pong ball like, and everything is shiny or a squirrel, or everything seems like it's a priority and on fire right now, needs to be taken care of. So it's important for us to be really clear about that. And that really helps center us. It helps us stay calm. It helps us stay really focused on our overall objectives and how we're going to get there.
Yeah, that's good. Well, kind of related to that question is the awareness that everyone's pace has really kind of shifted into seemingly more and more hyperdrive these days. And so you say that it's wise for business owners to slow down to grow their business. So I think this is related to what we were just talking about, but maybe you can take us a little bit in that direction.
Yeah, it's funny. This is where my clients enter I don't really doubt that I made the right decision to work with you, but I'm not sure I like with you stage. I don't like you anymore stage. I'm like, you don't have to like me. You just need to be successful. So, because we all want to jump out of the gate and really go, and being extremely intentional and extremely clear and measured and there's a time to take risk, there's a time to hustle, all of that comes into play. But being really clear and slowing down helps us not miss the details. So much gets missed if all we're focused on is our destination. And I don't remember which French philosopher it is. I should write it down because I refer to it a lot. But they say something, paraphrased, like, if all we focus on is the destination, then we miss the beauty of the journey. And so much of the detail and the learning and the growth for our business, for our personal selves, is in the journey. And you and I were talking about that a little bit on a separate note while we were warming up, just how we really want to get to the other side of things.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we miss the scenery.
Yeah, it's true. And I think for me too, I think when I hear you say that, I think about the perspective that comes, the wisdom, the guidance, for these next steps, or to remember what is most important to me when I do slow down or allocate time. Like I think I read that you talking about intentionally leaving blank space or white space on the calendar, right?
Yeah.
So that made me think, it's a chance to let the mind roam more freely, and I get perspective. Otherwise, when I'm in this barrage of action and feeling like I'm checking stuff off and this and that, but I can begin to forget why I'm even caring about this.
Yeah. Head down all the time is not a good thing. Again, there's a time to really like double down and hustle, like really go through it and accelerate. And the thing about the slow down in order to speed up or scale up is that it's okay to make mistakes. Recovering perfectionist here. I'll say that a few times maybe. But we make fewer mistakes when we have clarity, when we've slowed down to get clear on, try to anticipate what to expect, what could come up. And if that comes up, how do I prepare myself to handle it? Or how do my team and I deal with this thing that might come up or whatever? But we just make fewer mistakes. So it actually appears that we're moving faster. When I start working with a client, we just the first month or 6 weeks, it's just a little bit decelerated for clarity, for getting to know each other and building our relationship, but also getting the nitty gritty. I want to know everything. I want to know, and this is important, I think, for your listeners, what makes you happy? Like, what brings you joy? And what wakes you up at 3 o'clock in the morning in a cold sweat? Because I don't know a single business owner who doesn't have that happen occasionally.
Right.
So what if you wake up stress thinking? What are you thinking about? What are the things you're worried about?
Right.
Because maybe we can handle those during waking hours when we slow down and we can come up with solutions. Or it's kind of like taking a self-defense class in a way. Like, we're preparing for something that we hope never happens. But even if it happens, or somebody has the intention of doing something bad, or a bad thing might be happening, we seem a little impervious, right? If we've prepared for it, using the self-defense analogy, we look a little, not to be messed with walking down the street.
Mhm.
And I believe, and I've seen this happen, that the same thing applies to when we anticipate what could the potential roadblock. What are the things that have come up in the past? And if we don't slow down to look at that, we go headlong into something, and then we feel blindsided, and it can actually throw us way off and slow us down. So the whole slowing down is just getting a clear picture and then letting go to the best of our ability of all the small details of it.
Right,
So,
right. And so do you see this applying mostly outside of it, like in the balance of life outside of patient care time? Or do you see, is there a clear application for how scheduling, say, would take place in a slowdown to be more productive? How do you adapt that into somebody who might be saying, yeah, but really, during the course of my day, I'm not slowing down. In fact,
we're
I
breakneck.
go faster all the time.
Yeah. I would, if it were a client of mine, actually, I'll use a client story, because I had a client who came to me who had pent up demand and a waiting list, and was going breakneck speed all the time, burning out, had 3 very young children. His partner was, kind of saying like, hey, you're late a lot. And mama's tired, like, it'd be great if you could have a regular schedule that you can stick to for the most. She's a surgeon, so she gets that not everything's going to be perfect, right? But like, could you be home? And he and I just slowed down in our time together. He was still going breakneck until we figured out how to adjust the schedule.
Right.
But we got really curious about how things could potentially be smoother. Did it mean bringing in another provider? Did it mean bringing in some form of medical assistant or somebody who could bridge some of the time so he could put his skates on and glide between patients?
Right.
And ultimately, what it came down to was he realized that there were ways that he could overlap his schedule, bring in one more admin person to handle some of the stuff that he was doing and really should not have been doing, and then bring in a part-time, I don't remember if it was like a PA or what, but there was somebody who came in who got the patients prepped and took the initial notes, and then he would come in, and he's a chiropractor and regenerative medicine. So he would come in and either do the adjustment or start on the infusions and the ultrasound type stuff. And within 3 months, all we did was just kind of make those little adjustments. He increased his revenues by 40%, but he started going home on time. He started eating lunch again. He hadn't been eating in a while. That doesn't help anyway, by the way. You need to feel your body throughout the day. And he actually pulled his schedule back so that he could take I think it was 1.5 day to leave early to go be with his kids, and a different half day to be in the office but not seeing patients, so that he was taking care of whatever he needed to take care of administratively, but also doing research and working on publishing and on the expert side of who he is as a provider. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. So other things that were kind of in him to accomplish, to contribute, that there was space made.
Yep.
Kind of back to that delegating we were talking about earlier of things, or which was kind of connected into the last thing I was wanting to kind of ask you about, was for everybody who's really wanting to be more entrepreneurial. And all these topics tie together, right? As far as working less and actually making more, I think that's what you just shared is a pretty good example of that. Is there more that you would want to share in that, from that mindset perspective of, I don't necessarily need to always work harder. Maybe I can work smarter, but maybe it's even less work and something that is better leveraged, or is more in my passion and inspiration, or what would you say?
All of the above. And I love that you used the word entrepreneurial. This is a drum that I beat with my clients all the time because they don't see themselves necessarily as entrepreneurs. And I think there's this idea that entrepreneur means like tech companies or solopreneurs who are coming up with something that's new and never been done before. But if we embody at least part of the identity as an entrepreneur, now we're equipped with the expectation that we're going to think outside the box, air quotes there, right? So we're more inclined toward creative solutions or to getting curious, and for medical and dental providers, obviously there are certain parameters. You've got your regulations and your oversight and your licensure and all of that handled with good legal advice and good ethics and all of that. Now what, right? So is there a way could you serve more patients without actually working more hours? That might not apply to all practices, but there may be a way to do that without massive overhead, right? Bringing in lots and lots of more people to do that. And so, it's going to vary by practice and by type of specialty, but there's definitely always a good solution to finding a way to do it differently.
Yeah, I think,
and it doesn't have to be a huge change too. Just wanted to throw that in there. Sometimes it's just like it's not a pivot. We pivoted so much in 2020, right? So it's
nobody likes that word.
No, we're so tired of it. I'm tired. My head hurts. My neck hurts from pivoting so much. But maybe it's like a slight course correction, just like a small adjustment that can change a lot of things. I'm not a huge fan of Tony Robbins, but there's a video of his that I love this metaphor so much. He told a story about playing golf and that he was struggling, and his golf instructor said, "Oh, well, there's one thing I didn't teach you." And it's like the difference of a millimeter. So if you move your hands just slightly and you shift your feet just this much and turn your shoulders just this much, that's the difference between you hitting the ball and it going into the water and you hitting the ball and it going onto the green.
Right. Yeah.
And if we think about a longer, medium to long-term trajectory, a slight adjustment can really be a pretty amazing course correction, and get us more where we want to be.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. And I think just the openness, the receptivity to possibility, right? That it could be some small difference, that maybe how I'm doing things currently isn't the forever be all end all. And if I'm getting some symptoms or signs that are showing me that this doesn't seem optimal, and it's too much negative stress, or I'm wanting to avoid things, or it's just not getting me fully to where I want to go, to allow for the fact that maybe it could be at least slightly reinvented. It could be modified in some way. I think that's a starting point. And then maybe creating enough space in your calendar to allow a new creative idea, or to get with somebody to help coach you through to see some things maybe that you're not seeing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is the beginning of some great changes sometimes.
I think so too. And, the other thing I would advise, and we do this in my company as well, we don't change more than one or two things at a time. Because if you pull all the levers, you have no idea which one actually worked. So we work in 6 to 8 week cycles, depending on what we're doing. So if we make one adjustment, we track our data. So, creative woman here, and yet we're very, data driven. So we watch our data and our stats and all the different things over that course of time. If nothing's changed, we pull a different lever, and then we track that for 6 to 8 weeks. So the same, I think, should be true in your practice, unless you're just in a position where you have been thinking about it for a while and you're just like, hard stop. Now I need to, reevaluate everything. Or maybe I don't want to continue on this traditional trajectory and I want to do things a different way. But that aside, one lever at a time, please.
Yeah, good.
Just you won't get the information that you need, and you may open floodgates that you're not prepared for.
Right. Yeah, it's good. Good wisdom. Thank you.
Well, learned by mistakes made, by the way.
Yeah. I think we were talking about that earlier as well. The
Yes.
things that we learn in the middle of things, right? So,
yes, character building.
yes, right. So this has been awesome, and I love your approach to all these things. So for those that are listening to us, watching us, who say, I like what Tracy has to say, and they would like to know more, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
I would say to get in touch with me, I want to offer two options. One, to get in touch with me, you can go to our website, tracycherpeski.com. A little hard to spell, but it'll be in the show notes. And just click on there, and there's buttons all over the place to contact us. So get in touch with us that way.
Buttons all over the place.
Buttons all over the place. Yeah. Beautiful design. Pretty obvious for you. Yeah. And it would be our pleasure. I would love to spend time, having a conversation if you just want to explore. I am a no pressure salesperson. I really invite possibility. And then if we're a fit and we decide that's a good idea, we work together. But sometimes even just one conversation can shift enough that you've got something to go forward and work with. So that's always my pleasure. I love to be of service that way. Another, I would say, is to give our podcast a listen. Go over to Thriving Practice with Tracy Cherpeski. If you just Google Thriving Practice, we're everywhere pretty much except Spotify. So you can find us anywhere. Lots of wisdom, great guests in there.
Nice. Very nice. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And I'm trusting that everyone who's been with us is appreciating it as well. And look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So for everybody that has been watching, this is the Truth Behind Dentistry podcast. I'm Matthew Norton. This has been Tracy Cherpeski, and we hope you've enjoyed the time, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you.